So we are going to look at chapter 21 workbook exercises. We have some parsings that we can discuss. And we'll do that first. If you don't have any questions, then I can give you a few questions and work through a couple of things just to drill down a little bit more some of the stuff we need to be thinking about, considering, and remembering as we move forward. But I will first leave it to you at the beginning to ask any questions that you may have about parsing. So what do you want to go through? 9 or 10. Why be stingy? Let's do both. Can we do that? All righty. So 9 and 10. Okay, so number 9 is hexucine. Actually, I put the movable nu here in my pronunciation. Hexucine. What is this verb? Anybody have any ideas as to what the lexical form might be? Echo. Echo. Like that? Smooth or rough breathing? Smooth, or do you guys call it smooth or soft? Smooth? Okay. People use different terms, so just double checking. Where's the accent? It's on the epsilon. So echo. Echo, good. Now take a look at the form we have. We have what kind of breathing mark? Rough. This is hexucine. So are you sure that this is the lexical form? This is what Mounce said. If you look at your principal parts, say for the lexical form at the end of the chapter where you're given echo as a verb, or if you go to that appendix in the back, would you find hex something or another for your future active indicative principal part? Do you have a hex form? Yeah, you do, right? Which principal part is that? It's the second. You get present and then future, right? Remember, the imperfect is not officially one of the principal parts. Why not? Because it uses the present stem. And you already have that in the first column, which is the present active indicative. So you don't need another principal part based on the present stem. Okay, so now, but do remember, Mounce will put the imperfect in parentheses in his vocab list at the end of the chapter. But it's not technically a principal part. That's why it's in parentheses. Okay? All right. So this is which tense stem? It's the future. Can you imagine how it is that hexucine can be a future based on that xi right there? Yes. What's the tense formative for the future? Sigma. So if you have this plus a sigma and then the usi, can you see where that can become a xi? Yeah. Okay, good. You can see it. You see it clearly. Which person and number is usi? Third plural. Excellent. And so we got future active indicative. You're sure that's active? Not middle? Yeah. Okay, good, good. All right, and then how would you translate it? They will have. Okay, so they will have. Good. Now, does anybody know why we have a rough breathing here and not a smooth breathing? Is it a different verbal root?
Well, with echo,
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is an interesting little thing here. I think it's time, as your father, I tell you about these things. Yes. We need to talk about the birds and the bees here. Yeah. What is the real root of this verb? Yeah. It's this. It's sech. Not sex, but sech. Sech. Okay? In other words, the real root had a sigma initially. But there is a very common feature in Greek of an initial sigma dropping out. And when it does, it is replaced by a rough breathing. So this becomes he. But then there's another problem. The rough breathing is followed by this ch sound. And the ch in contiguous sounds here is not pleasant. And what Greek did then was it de-aspirated, and we get the smooth breathing as long as we've got the chi. Yes?
How do you know that the root started with the sigma when none of the principal parts start with the sigma?
Because this is a fairly common feature of that, and you can explain the other forms if you posit the sigma and what a sigma would do in given scenario. So I'll talk about this here in just a moment. So what we get is this is a common phonetic issue. So we're talking about phonetics and conditioned sound changes. So this is a conditioned sound change in the Greek language of the sigma falling out and getting a rough breathing, but then next to a chi having to basically it's called dissimulation. It dissimulates and becomes smooth. Now, what ends up happening then is when I add the sigma here, I get the xi, right? That's no longer a ch sound, and so the rough breathing that wanted to be there can return. So what you're seeing in hexusine is the real rough breathing that was there when the original sigma fell off. So it's the present that's actually odd in that way. Okay? Okay, so I'm glad we got to talk about this. It was about time. All right. I know. Okay, so epeirotone, number 10, epeirotone. Can you think of a lexical form that might be reflected here in the inflected form you see? Epeirotao. Very nice. Epeirotao. What do you know about epeirotao? It's a contract verb. See that a-o there. So this is a contract verb. What else do you know about this verb? It has a prefix. So what do we call these kinds of verbs with little prepositional prefixes attached? A compound verb. So contract verbs have the vowel at the end of the stem. Compound verbs have the prefix at the front end. Okay? I'm doing this in Hebrew, though. This is the front end. This is the back end from your perspective. All right? So that means that if we're going to have a past tense secondary form, where am I going to see augmenting happen? After the prefix, but before the verbal stem. Do we have that here? Yes. Epeirotao. This is from epi, right? And remember, there are many places where the prefix has a vowel. It will fall out if the verb starts with a vowel, right? Before. And that's what we have. So this epsilon has lengthened to an eta right there. So that means we're in the past tense. We have an augment. Now, which past tense have we learned so far? The imperfect. Good. Well, we'll learn the aorist soon enough. But can you imagine that this could be the present tense stem being used for the imperfect here? Would that make sense? Yes, it would, right? So think about what, if this is the lexical form, the present stem is epeirota, right? So how is this going to be manipulated to form the imperfect? Augment here. We've got that, right? And then this is going to contract with with connecting vowels and personal endings. So omicrons and epsilons, and then the personal endings after it, right? Can you see an omega showing up as a contraction from one of these combinations? Yeah, with the omicron, right? And that makes sense because nu appears to be the personal ending, and an omicron would go before it, and the alpha would have been the contract vowel. So this omega is a contraction of these two things, alpha, omicron. Now, which imperfect personal ending are we looking at when we have omicron nu? There's two possibilities, right? So first singular or third plural of the imperfect active indicative, right? So how might I translate this? I was, or they were asking. Okay? Make sense? All good? Are you happy? Yeah. Good. We aim to please around here. Okay. Others? Sure. Say this with me. Ex ebilis. Ex ebilis. So, take a look at the form here. Is there anything about the inflectional ending that might give you the person and number? Third singular? Second singular. What tells you this is second singular? The sigma. That's looking very second singular, isn't it? We see that. Good. Now, question now is which tense are we looking at here? And we might want to know the lexical form to know the tense. That would be helpful, wouldn't it? Any lexical forms come to your mind when you hear exebalis? Yeah. Ekbalo. Good. Now take a look there. Do you see, that's the present stem, right? You can always tell the present stem from the lexical form. Is the present stem being used in this form? It appears to be. Something's intruded between these two parts, though, hasn't it? And what might that indicate? This is an augment. Where do those augments go again? That's right, between the prefix and the verbal stem. There's an augment. If I have an augment with the present stem, what tense is that? It's always the imperfect. I see present stem with an augment, it's imperfect. Is this the active or the middle passive sort of second person singular ending? This is active. This is active. Remember what the middle passive is for the real ending, second singular. Sa, sigma omicron, right? Main sa ta, metha stay ta. All right. And then that sigma omicron is going to interact with the preceding vowel by dropping out and getting the contraction, and ends up looking like an omicron upsilon. But that's not what we have here. So this is the good old active indicative in the secondary active forms. Okay. And then our translation would be what? If second singular is the inflection. You, and then progressive, right? Were. What's ekbalo mean? Casting out. Good. All right. Now, question. Yes. Shall I ask you the question, or you want to ask me the question?
I can ask you.
Okay, go ahead.
How come the kappa becomes a C? That's what I'm kind of confused about.
Yeah. Does anybody know the answer to this question? Come on. This is your time to shine. We will all bow. Wow. Bow wow.
Because of there was a sigma.
Ah, yeah. Where? Yeah. Actually, the real particle for from is x, and then when you put it put the X next to a B, what you have is a kappa sigma beta, right? X balo. That sigma is between two consonants now. And, well, there's this funny thing about Greek. Sigmas that are intervocalic and interconsonantal like to fall out. So the ekbalo is really a modification of what really is supposed to be the form. When you break up that structure, in other words, when that B is no longer next to the S sound and it's not interconsonantal, then that sigma can stay. And so X epsilon is what you have. All right. So fun. So Daddy takes the T-bird away.
I typically think of egg, like epsilon kappa.
Uh-huh.
Throwing me off.
Right.
It could also be epsilon chi, which is that what it is in this case?
Yeah. So like here in the lexical form, it's ek, right? But when you have like a vowel, like when you have the preposition ek plus followed by a vowel, you'll get the X back, right? Because that's what it's really supposed to be. Okay, good deal. Any others here? Oh, these are fun, aren't they? It's like a puzzle. How many of you like puzzles? Yeah, come on, this is a fun puzzle.
You do number 4?
Number 4. So esodzeste. Say that with me. Esodzeste? Huh. So anything identifiable here that just jumps out at you and slaps you in the face? The ste ending. Yeah. The Yoda subscript jumps out and slaps you in the face, huh? All right. So is that something that looks identifiable too? Yeah, so that's an augment. At least it looks like one, right? Now, just because you see a word with an epsilon in front doesn't automatically make it an augment, does it? Exebelis, that's not an augment, is it? So be careful. You can misanalyze things. But the other thing that sort of looks familiar is the lexical form, doesn't it? We have a lexical form, sodzo, with an iota subscript there too, right? Yeah? You've seen that before? Okay, so this looks like the present stem, but is that, what person and number is the ste ending? Second plural. Remember, sigma is second singular in the active secondary tenses. This is second plural in the middle passive secondary endings. So, what tense is that? Imperfect, because we're using the present stem. Okay, augments for imperfect, perfectly good. And so how might I translate this? If I give it middle meaning, the subject's going to do the action, so you were saving. Maybe you were saving up. Maybe you were reserving things, right? In your own interest or for your benefit. If it's the passive meaning, it's you were being saved, okay? So we'll just do the passive meaning because to save is transitive when it's active, yes? To save something or someone. So we can give this true passive meaning. So you were being saved. And we have figured out the puzzle. Okay? Everybody understand that? Any other ones that you'd like to look at here? Are there any questions about the warm-up exercises? Any questions at all? Zeta. Okay. How did you translate this? Maybe we can help you?
Initially, I translated it for if y'all, or if you believed Moses, you believe me. Or I said in Moses. If you believe in Moses, then you believe in me.
Mm-hmm.
I took out the ins at first. And then I think the word would makes it flow a little better.
Yeah. So which tense is epistuete? Yeah, which past tense? Because we have two of them. This is the imperfect, right? So, for if you believed. Again, if you were believing, probably not very good English translation, right? If you believed Moses or in Moses. I think both are probably appropriate here. Now, what tense is pistousete? Yeah, that's second plural. Which tense? Yeah, you see the sigma here? So that's future active indicative. So you might be tempted to translate this as you will believe in me. But realize because we have a conditional statement, in English, we're going to use one of those modal auxiliary verbs for that. If you did such and such, you would do such and such in English, even though in the Greek text here it's a future form. Okay? All right. Anything else?
So it would be fine to put like in Moses and in me. Sorry.
Yeah, that would be fine. And yes,
So it would be
you would. Yes. Right, like Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof. If I were a rich man, I would do something. Now, the nature of the conditional sentence is what's requiring that sort of that sort of way of framing it in English. Okay. What else? Anything else here?
Epsilon.
Mm-hmm.
Mounce had two different translations, and I was curious.
Okay. Yeah. So, what's the tense of ekrenometha? Okay, so it's imperfect. Now, that metha is passive. It could also be middle or passive, right? Oops, I don't know where that A came from. Sorry about that. I meant to write I for indicative. And then metha is which person a number? Is it second person plural? First person plural. Okay, great. Now, what were the two translation values that he gave for this?
One of them was we were not being judged. I didn't write down the other one. That's what I had.
Mm-hmm.
I can look it up.
Yeah. Yeah. My guess is that they both reflect either the middle or the passive. Right?
So we were judging.
So we were judging, and some might say we were judging for ourselves to reflect that you're actually trying to translate a middle. But if it's and you can only know this from the context because the forms are indistinguishable. If the subjects were actually being judged, then you'd go with the passive translation. So we were being judged. Yeah. Does anybody know? I don't have his answer key in front of me. Does he give a middle meaning and a true passive meaning?
We were not judging for ourselves.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that's reflecting the middle idea, where the subject is doing the action, but in some way benefits from it or is affected by the action at the same time. Alrighty. If you can look at beta real quickly, we have daimonia, pala, exebulon. Now, exebulon is what tense? It's imperfect. You see the augment here? Okay. See the new ending? What are my possibilities if this is an imperfect? First singular or third plural. Okay, good. Now look at daimonia and pala. What does that mean? Much or many. Daimonia? Okay, is this one or many demons? Yeah. What's the singular? Yeah, it's daimonion. Okay, so this is a neuter noun. It becomes plural with an alpha in which cases? So yes, so this could be nominative or accusative, plural, and neuter, right? Now that creates a little bit of a problem here, doesn't it? Because if this is plural, it could be the subject of a third person plural verb, couldn't it? But the accusative is identical to the plural. So it could be the object of this verb as well, can't it? So all by itself, there is some ambiguity just looking at the grammar on the face of it. So what are my possibilities for translating this? Accepting all the possibilities. Many demons were casting out. Exactly. That's one way to translate it. Doesn't seem very likely, does it? But maybe they were jealous. Many demons were casting out. Or, that's if it's not the subject, it'd be the object, then what are my other possibilities? They were casting out many demons, or I was casting out many demons. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it could be both, couldn't it? So just be careful here. This is where you have to read the text grammatically. You have to really look at the endings, both the inflectional endings on the verbs as well as the inflectional case endings on the nouns, and ask yourself, what are my possibilities? Don't assume that just because you know what your New Testament's supposed to say, that you know what the Greek says. Remember, you are required to teach what the text says, not what you want it to say. And if you do that, you will always be safe. Okay, so which is it? Well, unlikely that demons are casting out. Yeah, there you go. See, it's biblical. All right, so probably I or they. And if we know the Bible stories, probably talking about disciples, right? Okay. Any final questions here about warm-ups or translation exercises? Yes?
Would the similarity in the first singular and third plural, would that have been like this is off topic kind of, but would that have been like a common trope in like the Greek plays? Would they have used that as like humor? Because I feel like you could create humor out of that as the way we do that with language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, is there any record of that?
Well, that's a great question, but I'm not the person to ask because I have never read Greek playwrights at all in Greek. But I can imagine that. Like I made a Fiddler on the Roof comment just a little while ago. I did that in this class, right? So my kids and I and my wife watched Fiddler on the Roof the other night, and there's this one situation where Tevye is told to go to Lazar Wolf's house to talk about his daughter. And Tevye thinks that he wants to buy Tevye's cow. Lazar wants to have his daughter for a wife. And so they're both thinking of different things and think they're talking about the same thing. And so Tevye keeps referring to what no one comes right out and says we're talking about, my daughter. So he says to Lazar, why would you want to buy that old cow from me? And Lazar thinks he's talking about the daughter. Why would you call her a cow? Well, that's what she is, And it's very humorous because the pronouns are being used, but they've got two different things going on, and it's quite clever. So anyhow, I really don't know the answer to that question though. That's the short answer. Okay, anything else real quickly? Surely there's at least one question about the translation work here. Yeah? Something? Anyone?
Number 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how did you translate this?
I had, for he was knowing who he was among mankind, which is knowing who he knew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, first of all, since this is a verb of mental state or condition, I probably go with a simple past, even though it's imperfect. So he knew, right? For he knew. And then here you had the problem. What gender is that form of T? This is neuter. Remember, your lexical forms are tis and T. Only two forms, so Masculine and feminine are reflected in the first one, neuter for the second. In this case, then, it's for he knew what, rather than who or whom. He knew what was and man. And I take this as a generic article, right? Articles can point to a specific thing, but they can also be used for generic purposes. So, example here, I could say, hey, look, the giraffe is very, sickly looking. And I'm talking about the specific giraffe in front of my eyes. But I could also be lecturing, to a group of kids about zoology and say, now, the giraffe is one of the tallest animals. Now, I'm not talking about a specific giraffe, right? I'm using the in a generic way. The class of animal called giraffe. The giraffe is a tall animal. So be aware, the article usage doesn't have to all be like this monolithic semantic thing, right? You can use the article in a variety of functions. Okay, well, we're out of time. Sorry to say, the fun has to come to an end. But don't worry, we'll have fun taking a quiz next time you come. Yay! All right.